What up, Wizards? It's Dev and Ziggy for the first time this week. You guys have been kind of asking for him, so I guess he heard your cries. We're here with some Final Fantasy spoilers, 10 of them to be exact. Previews, if you want to be very specific about things. Sometimes I say spoilers, people get really upset, like, they're previews. I'm sorry. I don't really know the difference, but one way or the other. We got 10 of these to look at today, including some really hype summons, a really sweet reference from Final Fantasy VI that I've personally been waiting for, and the summon that we've all been waiting for. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now we start with the commons as usual. There's only a couple of these today. You'll understand that dumb pun in just a second because, you know, all season I've been saying things akin to, well, at least Final Fantasy fits within the world of Magic the Gathering. You know what I mean? Like every Final Fantasy card should feel pretty Magic the Gathering-y, but they decided to prove me wrong today because we finally got to see Instant Ramen. I know we were all clamoring for this, right? From Final Fantasy 15, we got our cup noodles here. This is 2 mana for a food artifact with flash. When it enters, draw yourself a card. You can pay 2, tap it, and sack it to gain 3 life. You know, I think the thing that bugs me the most about it is that it's actually not that bad. It's basically a golden egg with flash, and like, golden egg would randomly show up on my arena feed every now and again, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this do the same. Honestly, man, just 2 mana, draw a card, and get an artifact on the table has been a decent play in the past, all the way back to like Prophetic Prism and before that. So again, just the fact that it has flash strictly upgrades this card to a point to where like, okay, maybe it's actually playable again. Last thing about this card, because honestly I think I've already talked way too long about this little common, but I've got way too much to say about it and I can't help myself. I don't think I've ever in my life said that a cup of noodles that I've eaten had bad flavor, but this particular one, yeah, a little bit. I'm just not sure that this was the Final Fantasy reference that the fan base was clamoring for, and it's going to feel kind of weird in the middle of a game when, like, your Urza reaches over for a cup of noodles. It just doesn't feel quite right. Honestly, feels like a flavor troll more than anything from Wizards of the Coast here, and I'm not sure I appreciate it, but I will move on to some references that I really, really do like Suplex, and of course, Phantom Train, because what do you suplex? This is maybe my favorite art in the entire set. On Suplex, running at the Phantom Train, just ready to get him. This is a slick reference right here, but neither one of these cards is entirely terrible either. Suplex is kind of doing an impression of a braid. It's 2 mana, 1 and a red for a sorcery. Choose one. Suplex deals 3 damage to a creature. That creature would die this turn. Exile it instead. And of course, you could also exile target artifact. Hey, that's strictly better than a braid. No, it's not. You see, this card is a sorcery, so it's more or less unplayable. But I could never call like a modal removal spell with 2 targets straight up bad. Like, this is a fine card, both in limited, and I guess if you absolutely have to exile artifacts and creatures, you might play it above a braid in standard. But I'm not too sure. Is exile worth sorcery speed over instant speed? It's going to be kind of tough to convince me, but Exile is really powerful. That said, Phantom Train is on screen too. This is 4 mana, 3 and a black for a 4/4 vehicle with trample. Sacrifice another artifact or creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Phantom Train, and it becomes a spirit artifact creature, in addition to its other types, until end of turn. So effectively, once it gets attacking, it's like a 4 mana 5/5 trample, and then a 6/6, and then a 7/7, but you got to come down on board presence every time you want to actually swing with it, which is kind of lame, but in limited right now, we got a few cards in this set that create little tokens in the common and uncommon slot. We've got a bunch of cards that can come back from the graveyard in some way, shape, or form, so shouldn't be too hard to keep fueling Phantom Train turn over turn, and if you can, I think it could take over a game of limited pretty easily, but I don't think it goes anywhere outside of that format, as amazing as both of these references are. And by the way, if you don't get this reference, then first of all, I feel bad for you, but second of all, it's because Sabin is apparently so strong he can suplex a boss fight train, baby. It's one of the coolest moments in like any Final Fantasy game when you find out you can suplex the train, but we'll move on here to another uncommon called Poison the Waters, another FF6 reference. 2 mana, 1 and a black for a sorcery. Choose one. All creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn, or target player reveals their hand. You choose an artifact or creature card from it. That player discards that card. Great artwork, by the way. They have made Mr. Palazzo look incredible on like all of his cards that we've seen so far. But anyway, cool reference again, but actually a fairly useful card, you know, depending on what you're playing against. You can blow away all the tokens or small guys on the table or whatever you're looking at, or you can just grab something out of your opponent's hand. It's a pretty well-designed card where, honestly, both modes are overcosted by a mana, but considering the spell's modal, it should always find something to do. This one's not too bad. I could actually see this one sneaking into a standard sideboard or two from time to time. It all kind of depends on what you're doing. I could see people wanting to play like Dreams of Steel and Oil, right, instead of this card, because it also hits graveyards, costs less mana, lots of reasons. But at the same time, you might be trying to consolidate your sideboard and free up some slots. And this kind of allows you to do that because it's a mass removal spell and a targeted discard spell against like artifact decks like Synthesizer. So again, I could see it happening from time to time. But we'll move on here to summon Primal Garuda. This card is, I think, a little bit better than it reads. This is 4 mana, 3 and a red for a 3/3 flying enchantment creature, Saga Harpy. On chapter 1, you do Aerial Blast. This creature deals 4 damage to a tapped creature an opponent controls. But on chapters 2 and 3, you get Slipstream. Another target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains flying until end of turn. So I don't think this is the most impressive Saga that we've seen from the set, don't get me wrong. Again, just think it's like slightly better than it looks at first glance. A 4 mana 3/3 flyer is not an amazing deal, but a 4 mana 3/3 flyer that blows up a creature when it ETBs, we're starting to talk a little bit. This could actually attack for effectively 4 damage the turn that it actually gets to attack. It does have to target another creature, but it's still technically putting 4 power on the board that turn, and it puts an extra power on the board the turn it dies too. Giving another creature flying is also kind of a big deal if you're trying to get damage in, so I don't know, man. 4 mana to blow up one of your opponent's creatures, get in an extra 5 total damage throughout the game, and you probably will get in more because you're giving a creature flying. And I, again, think that could actually be like a fairly swingy play. I'm not sure where it goes, or if it ever shows up, or if it's better than the bevy of 4-drops that Mono White already has access to, like Biza, for instance, is a much better card than this. So, again, I'm not sure where you slot it in. I just think it's kind of a neat card, and better than it looks. I'm just going to end this card by saying that when you see a flying Flame Tongue Kavu variant, you should probably pay at least a little bit of attention to it. But I'm going to move on to another summon here. It's Summon Anima. Now, this is not the one everyone's been waiting for, but it's one of the ones I've been waiting for. This is 16-year-old dev's, favorite Final Fantasy X summon, and arguably, note the word arguably there, fellow Final Fantasy fans, the most powerful summon in the game. So let's see what it does. 6 mana, 4 and 2 black for a 4/4 enchantment creature, Saga Horror with Menace. On chapters 1, 2, and 3, it has Pain. You draw a card, and you lose 1 life. On chapter 4, it has Oblivion. Each opponent sacrifices a creature of their choice and loses 3 life. I like that his finisher has the same name as Liv Morgan's finisher in WWE, but anyway. So it kind of sucks a little bit. It's not great, obviously, but this does get to attack more than the other sagas get to attack. It's got 4 chapters, so that's 2 turns attacking. That matters. It's a Phyrexian Arena for 3 turns, but, it costs you twice as much as a Phyrexian Arena, and it can be killed a lot more easily than an arena can too. But, this last chapter kind of catches everybody up on the life loss, and they have to sack a creature, which I think is a pretty good deal. This is one of those, though, where, sadly, it's probably not going to be played basically anywhere in Standard. Not only are 6-drops, kind of not played in Mono Black, or people would probably be playing Liliana Dreadhorde General. You see it on Arena from time to time, but not enough in MTGO League results and big tournaments and stuff. No one is playing 6-drops. And we've already seen a couple of 6-drops from this set in black that I would love to play. Like the Odin summon, for instance, looks a lot more powerful than Anima. So they kind of did one of my favorite summons in Final Fantasy period, a little bit dirty here, but at least it's technically 1 card that's drawing you 3 cards and taking a thing off the other side of the table. So if you want to look at this as a 4-for-1, I guess it kind of is, but it's just way too expensive. Now next, the good news is that we are in the rares, everybody. I guess the bad news is we got to start somewhere. So let's look at Saz Katzroy. Never knew that was your last name, man. 4 mana, 3 and a green for a 3/3 legendary human pilot. When Saz enters, you may search your library for a bird or basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle up. When Saz Katzroy attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and then double the number of +1/+1 counters on that creature. This works pretty interestingly with Saz's Chocobo. Right? You play Saz's Chocobo on turn 1, and then by turn 4, it's gotten 3 +1/+1 counters. By turn 5, it may have gotten another +1/+1 counter. You put a +1/+1 counter on when Saz attacks, and then you double the number of +1/+1 counters. We could have, 10 power at something like that by then? And that's if you haven't ramped, but you have hit all your land drops. It's a cute little line, but I'm not sure that's gonna happen for you. You know what I mean? I will say this card looks a little bit commandery, but double the number of +1/+1 counters on a creature is actually a pretty hot little line of text. I think there's better green 4-drops in Standard, but I guess if you want to build the bird deck really bad, this guy's going in. I guess it's worth noting that Saz can put the counter on himself, so the first time he attacks, he could attack as a 5/5 if that's the first counter that he's gotten, right? So this guy could get big turn over turn and eventually take over the game by himself. You know, the second time he doubles the number of counters on himself, he's a huge dude for a 4-mana investment. I just think there's probably, again, better options for cards that can take over the game by themselves left unchecked than Saz. But hey, it's possible I'm just not taking the dude seriously enough. I feel like most people don't, and they probably should. This dude, again, there's something to him, and if nothing else, he's going to put a bird into your hand. They kill your Saz, you still get a bird out of the deal. Let's kind of go. Everyone likes a tutor, but we'll move on here to Machinists Arsenal. This is 5 mana, 4 into white for an equipment. It equips for 4, but it does have job select, so it comes into play with a 1/1 stapled to it. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 for each artifact you control and is an artificer, in addition to its other types. If the only artifact on the table is Machinist Arsenal, you get yourself a little 3/3 here, but things scale very fast and honestly pretty terrifyingly. I'm sure that there are other effects like this that give your creatures +X/+X for some number of artifacts you have out or something like that, but what this immediately makes me think of is like Ancestral Mask, right? Like something that gives your creature +2/+2 for all the enchantments that are on the table, right? This kind of feels very similar to a card like that, just for artifacts, and that is really exciting, you know? In your Enchantress deck in Commander, you're going to play Ancestral Mask, but those are the only decks you're really going to play Mask in. When it comes to Machinist Arsenal, well, I got Sol Rings, I got Talismans, I got Arcane Signets, I got all these Mana Rocks, I got a couple of other artifacts laying around. Just in most Commander decks, I feel like this could easily give a creature +6/+6. And it doesn't say like non-token artifacts either. I had to double check that between takes. If you got a bunch of treasure tokens laying around in just about any format, suddenly a creature can get really, really big. And there's a lot of ways to put a ton of treasure tokens on the table all at once. Again, this is downright scary on certain commander boards, but even in Standard, there are ways to make it work. It obviously triggers Simulacrum Synthesizer when it comes into play, and then makes creatures huge, but honestly, I do feel like that's kind of a win more in that deck, but it could slot into artifact decks in Standard despite the fact that it costs a good bit of mana. It's putting so much PT on the board right then and there. I guess the counter to that, though, is that even if it makes a 10/10, you spend 5 mana on a vanilla 10/10. Congratulations on your Gigantosaurus. How playable is that card? I guess my counter to that argument would be, well, when they blow away Gigantosaurus, it's dead. If they blow away the guy that's attached to this, you can just attach it to something else and get another Gigantosaurus. And Gigantosaurus doesn't do that. So, again, in the context of specific commander decks, this card looks very powerful. But we'll move on to Sarah Faren here. 3 mana, 1 a green and a white for a 2/2 legendary human citizen. The first legendary creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 2 or more other legendary creatures, you may transform Sarah into crystallized Sarah. So sad. Legendary artifact with some of the same text. The first legendary creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast, but also legendary creatures you control get +2/+2. Well, this goes in Joda for sure. Now, one thing I want to clear up, because I've seen a lot of people having this misconception today. The turn you play Sarah, you're not going to get any cost reduction if you played her out of your hand, because you see, you've already played a legendary spell this turn. Sarah. So unless you somehow reanimate her or something, or get her into play without casting her, she's not going to give you any cost reduction the turn that you get her. However, that's where, things like Helping Hand, for instance, come in. Helping Hand can get this out of your yard for a single mana, and you'll still have that cost reduction up. So I could see some wild turn 3s where you go like Helping Hand into Sarah, and you can cast like Biza or something out of your hand. I feel like I should point out, if I'm going to appease a lot of the spikes in the comment section, that this does die to like most or all even played removal in Standard right now. But again, if you do like a Helping Hand or a Recommission or something to get it out of your graveyard, maybe even a Phoenix Down, that's a new card we have access to now, well then suddenly the way priority and timing works, you're definitely going to get some cost reduction before your opponent can actually target it with a removal spell, which I think is also worth pointing out. And for what it's worth, Naya Legends just won a standard tournament within this last week. A deck with like Roxanne and Atali and all these wild legends. And this could easily slot directly into that deck and make your Atali cost like 5 mana to cast. Seems like a decent deal to me. So it actually has homes in standard right this second. I wouldn't be surprised to see it show up. But here's our final card of the day, everyone. The one we've all been waiting for, apparently. I don't think I've done a video this season that hasn't included somewhere in the comments section somebody asking for this card. Here is Summon Knights of Round. 8 mana, 6 and 2 white for a 3/3 enchantment creature saga knight. On chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, you create 3/2/2 white knight creature tokens. And then on chapter 5, you get Ultimate End. Other creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. Put an indestructible counter on each of them. By the way, that is exactly the correct number of knights. It's 13, but on that last turn, if you have all your knights in play and nothing else, 12 of them swing, and I'm pretty sure that's like 48 damage. Correct me if my math is wrong. It very often is. That should end a game. But at the same time, I feel like if you spend 8 mana on a 3/3, you are just asking to get it hit by a removal spell in this format right now. I guess the good news is if they do hit it with a removal spell the moment it comes down, you still have 6 power on the table. There is inevitability on this card, but I'm not sure that this is what you want to be ramping into or even reanimating. You know, we've got, say, Summon Bahamut. I think that's the most powerful reanimatable summon that we've seen in this set so far, and I'm not even sure it's a better reanimation target than Atraxa or Valgavoth in Standard right now, so I'm not even sure Bahamut sees play, and I don't think this one will. Which is really painful to say, but there are some really good things about this despite the casting cost. Blinking it is especially good, especially if you can get it blunked? Especially if you can get it blinked. We should make that a word. On like, you know, the 3rd chapter or something and get it to start making tokens for you again. It's also a pretty fun creature to copy, and note that it is not legendary whatsoever, so copies very nicely. There are things that you can do with this guy, and I don't want to be too disappointed in him because I think that there's, you know, obviously if you have a Mondrak in play, then you're getting 12 power on the table the turn that you cast this. Like, again, there are things to do with it in Standard. I'm just not sure that they're quite powerful enough. Look, I'm trying to look on the bright side of life with this one. There are obviously really powerful things you can do with this card in a game of Magic. I don't think that's disputable, but there's also a part of me that feels like, man, I bred a gold chocobo for this? That took like an extra 6 or 8 in-game hours to pull that off, and this is what I get, you know what I mean? Like in Final Fantasy VII, Knights of Round is an obscenely powerful materia that can do quad 9s 13 times in a row, and you basically need it to beat both of the secret in-game bosses, right? So this is an incredibly, almost indescribably powerful spell that we're looking at here. And I think that they've kind of nailed the flavor on it. I don't mind that it cost 1 million mana. A spell like this, you should have to put a lot of effort into casting as a spellcaster. I totally get the high casting cost. I just look at it and think that, well, it basically has to be reanimated or cheated out somehow. And I think we have a lot better options if you're going to try to cheat out a huge enchantment or creature in Standard right now. So I worry that it's going to sit in, you know, bulk binders for the rest of history. But that said, again, if you're playing Commander and you're playing Mondrak, Anointed Procession, Elspeth Stormslayer, O'Hare Talk, or whatever, there are plenty of ways to get literally like 1,000 tokens on the table with this card, so it might be up your alley. But that is all that we have for today, y'all, and we probably won't get any more previews until Monday afternoon, which is fine. I need the weekend to go ahead and get out this Chess-Guy Counterburn deck. If you're interested in that, make sure you sub to the sandwich, because I probably should have put that out just before preview season, but I got kind of caught up. Either way, we're going to be doing that deck tech this weekend, and then Monday we'll be right back to FF previews. Appreciate everybody watching so far this season, y'all. We've gotten a bunch more subscribers. We've gotten a few more patrons, too, so appreciate all of y'all for the love this preview season. Just wanted to take some time to say that. And speaking of, by the way, if you wanted to, you could hit the like button on the way out. You could sub to the sandwich, or you could check out that Patreon. Link in the description. It's basically the only thing that keeps the lights on around here, and basically at every YouTuber's office that has a Patreon, that's the only thing that keeps the lights on. So consider supporting not just me, but your favorite creators so we can keep creating. Apart from that, just let me know how you felt about everything down there in the comments section. I do read your comments, and I am interested in what you have to say, right? Like, first of all, how do you feel about the whole Instant Ramen thing? Is that hitting your face right? So how about Knights of Round? Does that card cost too much? Like, is pretty much perfect flavor offset by the fact that the card costs way too much to be playable in most formats. Apart from that, do you think Sarah's a good Magic card? I think Sarah's a pretty good Magic card, but I want to know how you feel about all this stuff down there in the comments section. But apart from that, I guess I'm donezo for this one, so I'll catch you cats later. I'm Deb from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.